What happens when the calmest man in Hollywood walks into a room designed for confrontation and realizes the smiles greeting him are only half sincere? The applause inside the View studio is thunderous. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson steps out from backstage, larger than life, yet somehow grounded. His suit is perfectly tailored, charcoal gray, crisp white shirt, no tie. Clean, controlled, professional. He flashes that signature smile, the one that's sold out arenas, carried billion-dollar franchises, and inspired millions. The audience rises to their feet. He waves modestly, placing a hand over his heart. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. But as he approaches the table, something shifts. Joy Behar's smile lingers a second too long, polite, but measuring. Analytical. The kind of smile that says, let's see how untouchable you really are. Dwayne senses it. He always does. Years in wrestling taught him how to read a room before a single word is spoken. He takes his seat. The pleasantries begin. So great to have you here. One of the hosts says warmly. You're everywhere right now. Dwayne chuckles softly. I'm just trying to work hard and stay grateful. Joy tilts her head slightly. You're not just working hard. You're dominating Hollywood. Some people say you're overexposed. A few nervous laughs ripple through the audience. Dwayne doesn't blink. He smiles again, but this one is tighter. Well, I believe in showing up fully for every opportunity I'm given. If the audience keeps supporting the projects, I'll keep putting in the work. His tone is calm, measured, diplomatic. Joy leans back in her chair, crossing her arms. But isn't there a difference between working hard and controlling everything? Producing your own films, reshaping scripts, steering narratives. Some critics say you're more focused on protecting the Rock brand than taking real risks. The audience shifts in their seats. The air gets heavier. Dwayne nods slowly, as if genuinely considering the question. I've built my career from $7 in my pocket. When you come from that place, you learn to protect what you build. That's not ego. That's responsibility. A soft applause breaks out. Joy presses further. But doesn't that make everything feel safe? Predictable? The inspirational speeches, the underdog victories, the motivational Instagram posts. Some would say it's calculated. The word lands harder than it should. Calculated. For a split second, something flickers in Dwayne's eyes. He laughs lightly. I think discipline looks calculated from the outside. When you wake up at 4 a.m. for 20 years straight, people assume there's some secret formula. There isn't. It's consistency. The audience claps again, louder this time. Joy doesn't. She leans forward. You've carefully avoided controversy your entire career. No political stances. No strong positions. Just positivity. Isn't that convenient? There it is. The first real strike. The studio falls silent. Dwayne's jaw tightens, barely noticeable, but it's there. His fingers interlock on the table. I believe in bringing people together, he says calmly. The world has enough division. Joy's voice sharpens just a degree. Or is it about not upsetting ticket buyers? A collective gasp. Even the other hosts glance sideways. Dwayne inhales slowly. Controlled. Deliberate. He's faced roaring crowds, hostile arenas, ruthless critics. But this isn't a wrestling ring. This is live daytime television, and the blows are subtler, sharper. You can't build a global audience by disrespecting half of it, he replies. I listen first. I speak when it matters. Joy arches an eyebrow. But when does it matter? Silence. The tension is now visible. Tangible. Dwayne's smile fades, not dramatically, but honestly. His expression becomes thoughtful. Serious. When I see people hurting, he says, voice lower now, more personal. When I see families struggling, when I see communities that need help, that's when it matters. And I do speak, maybe not always in ways that create headlines. The audience applauds again, stronger this time. Joy taps her pen lightly against the table. Some would argue speaking softly is safer. The word safer hangs in the air like smoke. For a moment, the camera zooms in. You can almost see the calculation happening behind Dwayne's eyes. Not branding. Not PR. self-control. He leans slightly forward. Joy, he says, voice steady but firmer now. I've spent my entire life taking risks. In football, in wrestling, in business, in film. I've failed publicly more times than people realize. His eyes lock with hers. But I won't mistake loudness for courage. The audience erupts, clapping, a few whistles breaking through. Joy smiles thinly. So you're saying I'm loud? A ripple of laughter. Dwayne exhales through his nose, almost amused. I'm saying there are many ways to lead. There's a pause. One of the other hosts quickly jumps in, trying to lighten the mood. Well, speaking of leadership, there's always that rumor about you running for president. The audience cheers loudly at that. But Joy doesn't let go. Yes, she says quickly. Would you actually run? Or is that just another carefully polished narrative? And there it is again.
Polished.
Manufactured. Engineered. The calm in Dwayne's face begins to strain, just slightly. His shoulders shift. He adjusts his posture. Not defensive. Grounding. I've said before, he begins slowly, if I felt I could truly make a difference and unite people, I'd consider it. Joy cuts in. But you haven't ruled it out. That keeps the speculation alive. Great publicity. A few members of the audience murmur in discomfort. Now the temperature has changed. This isn't playful banter anymore. It's interrogation. Dwayne's eyes narrow, just a fraction. Publicity isn't why I wake up every morning, he says, voice deeper now, a subtle steel entering it. Joy tilts her head. Then what is? He pauses. And for the first time since walking on stage, he doesn't smile. My daughters, he says quietly. My family. The people who believed in me when nobody else did. The studio softens for a second, but Joy presses one more time. And the brand. The word lands like a final jab. The audience holds its breath. Dwayne's fingers unclasp. He places both hands flat on the table, very slowly. And when he speaks again, the warmth is still there, but something underneath it has shifted. Joy, he says calmly, but the calm now feels deliberate, almost strained. Everything I've built has my name on it. That's not branding. That's accountability. The silence stretches. You can feel it. The line has been drawn, not loudly, not explosively, but clearly. And for the first time in the segment, Dwayne Johnson isn't just smiling through it. He's holding something back. Something powerful. Something that, if pushed just a little further, might finally break. The silence after his last sentence doesn't feel accidental. It feels earned. The audience senses it. The other hosts sense it. Even Joy senses it. But instead of stepping back, she leans in. There's something about live television. When tension appears, it either dissolves or it feeds. Joy smiles again, but it's sharper now. Well, she says lightly, accountability also means answering tough questions. Dwayne nods once. I agree.
But his tone has changed.
It's no longer warm and conversational. It's precise. The cameras zoom slightly closer. Producers in the control room exchange glances. This is no longer just another celebrity promo tour. Joy flips a card on the table. Let's talk about authenticity, she says. You post motivational messages daily. You talk about gratitude, hard work, humility. But you're also one of the highest paid actors in the world. Some critics argue that it's easy to preach struggle when you're living in a mansion. A few scattered claps. A few uncomfortable laughs. Dwayne's expression remains still, but his eyes sharpen. I've never claimed to struggle now, he replies calmly. I talk about where I came from. Joy interrupts gently. But does constantly reminding people about $7 become part of the myth? A story that keeps the underdog narrative alive even when you're at the top. There's that word again. Narrative. Manufactured. Calculated. Dwayne exhales slowly through his nose. You don't forget hunger just because you're full today, he says. The lessons don't disappear. Joy tilts her head. But does humility disappear when you attach your name to everything? Production companies.
Tequila brands.
Football leagues. The audience murmurs again. One of the other hosts shifts uncomfortably in her chair. Joy. But Joy continues, voice steady. Some say it's not about inspiration anymore. It's empire building. The word lands heavier than before. Empire. For a moment, the room feels smaller. Dwayne leans back slightly, studying her. He's been here before, different rooms, different interrogators. The challenge isn't the question. It's the implication. You build when you know what it's like to have nothing, he says carefully. And when you build, you create jobs, opportunities, platforms. Joy nods. And power. There it is again.
Power.
The audience shifts, sensing the escalation. Dwayne's jaw tightens, barely, but enough for the camera to catch it. I don't see power as control, he replies. I see it as responsibility. Joy smiles faintly. That sounds very polished. A quiet gasp. Now it's direct. Now it's personal. Dwayne's hands fold together again, but slower this time. You keep saying polished, he says evenly. You keep suggesting there's something artificial about discipline. Joy shrugs lightly. I'm suggesting that the image of The Rock is very carefully maintained. We never see anger. We never see cracks. It's almost too perfect. The audience goes still. For a split second, just a fraction, something flashes across Dwayne's face. Not rage. Not yet. But irritation. You're seeing me right now, he says. Joy doesn't hesitate. Are we? The words hang like smoke. The camera cuts briefly to audience members, wide-eyed, leaning forward. Dwayne leans toward the table, his voice lowering slightly. I've been open about depression, he says. About my mother's struggles. About losing football. About starting over in wrestling when people said, I'd never make it. That's not perfect. Joy nods slowly. But those stories always end in triumph. In victory. In applause. That's the formula.
Formula.
Another jab. Dwayne's composure flickers, not in volume, but in intensity. You want me to apologize for overcoming things? He asks quietly. Joy lifts a brow.
No.
I'm asking whether the constant triumph story leaves room for accountability when things don't go well. The room tightens again. The other hosts try to pivot. Let's talk about your latest film. But Joy speaks over them, calm but firm. Your recent box office performance wasn't as strong as expected. Critics were harsher than usual. For the first time, the Rock formula didn't guarantee success. There it is. Now, it's about failure. The audience feels the shift immediately. Dwayne's eyes narrow slightly. Failure guarantees growth, he says. I've never run from that. Joy leans forward. But you did publicly defend the film's performance. Some say you blamed outside factors instead of taking responsibility. The audience murmurs louder this time. This isn't playful anymore. This is a cross-examination. Dwayne's voice deepens. I stand by my teams, he says. That's leadership. Joy fires back. Or deflection? And something changes. It's subtle, but unmistakable. Dwayne's back straightens. His shoulders square, not casually now, intentionally. His calm isn't gone, but it's no longer relaxed. It's controlled. You keep framing everything as strategy, he says slowly, as if every decision is manipulation. Joy responds instantly. Isn't it? The air feels electric. Even the audience stops breathing. Dwayne holds her gaze for several long seconds. When he finally speaks, his voice carries weight. There's a difference between strategy and survival, he says. When you grow up watching eviction notices on your door, you learn to think ahead. When you fail publicly in front of millions, you learn to adapt. That's not manipulation. Joy's expression doesn't soften. But at what point, she asks carefully, does survival turn into control? When do you stop being the underdog and start being the establishment? That question hits differently, because it isn't about money. It isn't about movies. It's about identity. And for the first time, Dwayne doesn't answer immediately. He looks down at the table, just for a second, then back up. I've never seen myself as the establishment, he says quietly. Joy doesn't blink. But you are. A sharp inhale from somewhere in the audience. The words land harder than anything before. For years, Dwayne Johnson has been the symbol of hustle. the smiling titan who worked harder than everyone else, the motivational voice in a divided world. But now, on live television, Joy is peeling that image back layer by layer. And she isn't done. You talk about unity, she continues, about bringing people together. But unity without taking strong positions can look like neutrality. And neutrality can look like silence. The studio goes dead silent. Dwayne's hands tighten slightly on the table. His knuckles pale. The calm is still there. But now it feels like pressure inside a sealed container. Building. And Joy leans in one final time, her voice almost soft. So, let me ask you directly, Dwayne, who are you when the cameras are off? The question isn't loud, but it's explosive. Because this time, there's no brand to hide behind. No polished phrase. Just a man. And a moment. And for the first time since he walked onto that stage, Dwayne Johnson doesn't smile at all. The question lingers in the air like a held breath. Who are you when the cameras are off? The studio is so quiet you can almost hear the hum of the lights overhead. Dwayne doesn't answer right away. For the first time since he stepped onto the stage, he doesn't look like The Rock, the global brand, the polished motivator, the box office titan. He looks like a man deciding how much of himself he's willing to hand over live. His fingers slowly uncurl from the table. He leans back in his chair, eyes steady on Joy. When the cameras are off, he says quietly, I'm a father making pancakes at 6 in the morning. A few soft laughs ripple through the crowd, but they're nervous, unsure. I'm a son who still calls his mom every day, he continues. I'm a guy who worries about whether I'm doing enough, whether I'm present enough, whether I'm leading the right way. Joy doesn't interrupt, but she doesn't soften either. And when you're not inspiring anyone, she asks. There's a sharpness in the phrasing. Dwayne's eyes narrow slightly. I don't wake up trying to inspire people, he says. I wake up trying to handle my responsibilities. Joy folds her hands. But your image depends on inspiration. There it is again. Image. Dependency. Manufactured strength. Dwayne tilts his head just slightly, studying her. Why does it bother you, he asks calmly, that I choose to focus on positive things? The audience murmurs. It's the first time he's asked her a question. Joy doesn't hesitate. It doesn't bother me. I question it. There's a difference. And what are you questioning? He presses. Whether positivity becomes a shield, she replies instantly. A way to avoid harder conversations. The temperature in the room rises again. Dwayne's jaw flexes. You keep assuming avoidance, he says, voice lower now. You don't see the conversations I have privately. The causes I support quietly. The things I don't publicize. Joy leans in. But leadership in public life isn't private. The words are deliberate, carefully aimed. The audience shifts again, some nodding, others visibly uncomfortable. Dwayne's calm is still there, but it's no longer smooth. It's taut. You're asking me to perform outrage, he says. That's not who I am. Joy fires back. Or maybe we're asking you to take a stand. There's a crackle in the air now. The other hosts are silent. They know better than to interrupt. Dwayne leans forward again, elbows near the edge of the table. I've taken stands, he says firmly. Just because I don't shout them into a microphone doesn't mean they don't exist. Joy's voice remains steady. When you have a platform as large as yours, silence can speak louder than words. And that's when it happens. Not an explosion, not yelling, but something shifts behind Dwayne's eyes. A flash of frustration. Real, human, unfiltered. He sits back slowly. Let me ask you something, he says, voice deeper than before. Do you think I've gotten here by being afraid? Joy holds his gaze. I think you've gotten here by being smart. A pause. And careful. The audience gasps softly. Careful. The implication is clear. Calculated. Safe. Controlled. Dwayne nods once, almost to himself. Careful kept a roof over my family's head, he says quietly. Careful paid my parents' bills. Careful made sure my daughters never saw what I saw growing up. The emotion in his voice is subtle, but it's there.
Real.
Joy watches him closely. No one is dismissing your struggle, she says. But at some point, careful becomes comfortable. And that's the moment the calm begins to crack. Dwayne's posture changes, not aggressively, but decisively. His shoulders square. His chin lifts. Comfortable, he repeats, a faint edge entering his tone. Yes, Joy says. You're powerful now. Influential. Safe. There's no risk in motivational quotes. The audience reacts audibly, some clapping in agreement, others murmuring in protest. Dwayne lets the noise settle. Then he speaks. You think there's no risk? His voice is still controlled, but it carries weight now. Try failing in front of millions. Try switching industries when people say you're finished. Try putting your name on projects that could collapse and take your reputation with them. Joy interrupts softly, but you always land on your feet. That one lands, because it's half true. Dwayne leans closer, eyes locked on hers. Not always. The words are sharp.
Direct.
For a split second, the studio sees something they've never quite seen from him before. Not anger, but intensity, raw and unfiltered. There were years, he continues, voice steady but charged, when I was told I'd never make it in Hollywood, that I was too big, too ethnic, too different. I had to strip everything down and rebuild. That wasn't comfortable. Joy studies him carefully. But now, she asks quietly. The audience is frozen again. Dwayne doesn't look away. Now, he says, I'm still building. Joy tilts her head. Or protecting? The word slices through the air. Protecting. For the first time, Dwayne's smile disappears entirely. No softness. No diplomacy. Just a steady, unblinking stare. You're determined to turn discipline into something negative, he says slowly. I'm determined to understand it, Joy replies. The tension is suffocating now. You can see it in the audience's faces. Wide eyes, parted lips, phones subtly recording. Dwayne leans back again, but this time it feels different. Less relaxed. More restrained. You want to see cracks? He says quietly. The room tightens instantly. Joy doesn't flinch. I want to see honesty. And then, for the first time in the entire interview, Dwayne's voice loses its warmth. Not louder, but colder. You're looking at it. The words hit like a low drumbeat. The studio falls into complete silence. Because in that moment, the calm, polished persona everyone expects feels like it's standing on a razor's edge. And Joy, without raising her voice, has pushed him closer to it than anyone ever has live, on air. The question now isn't whether the calm will hold. It's how much more pressure it can take. The silence after you're looking at it feels heavier than anything said before. No applause. No nervous laughter. Just stillness. Joy studies him carefully, as if trying to decide whether she's just uncovered something real or triggered something irreversible. Dwayne doesn't look away. For the first time since he walked onto that stage, there is no performance in his expression. No motivational glow. No polished charm. Just presence. Joy clears her throat softly. So this is the crack? She asks almost clinically. Dwayne exhales slowly through his nose. No, he says evenly. This is me choosing not to smile through something I don't agree with. A subtle murmur spreads through the audience. One of the other hosts finally attempts to ease the tension. I think what Joy is trying to say. Dwayne lifts a hand gently, not dismissive, but firm. I understand what she's trying to say. His voice isn't raised, but it's solid now, anchored. Joy leans back slightly. Then help me understand, she says. Why does every challenge to your image feel like a threat? There it is again. Image. Threat. The framing is deliberate. Dwayne's eyes narrow just slightly. It's not a threat, he replies. But there's a difference between questioning actions and questioning character. Joy doesn't blink. Public figures don't get to separate the two. The audience reacts, a mixture of claps and uneasy shifting. Dwayne nods once slowly. Fair, he says. But when you suggest everything I do is calculated, manufactured, or safe, you're dismissing the work behind it. Joy's voice sharpens a fraction. Hard work doesn't make someone immune to critique. And critique doesn't make someone dishonest. Dwayne fires back, faster this time. The speed of the exchange changes the rhythm of the room. This isn't a thoughtful back and forth anymore. It's friction. Joy leans forward again, elbows lightly touching the table. Let me ask it plainly. Have you ever held back your real opinion because it might hurt your business? A sharp intake of breath from the audience. There's no metaphor there. No soft framing. Just direct accusation. Dwayne's jaw tightens visibly now. For a second, just a second, it looks like he might deflect. But he doesn't. I've chosen my timing carefully, he says. Joy pounces. So yes. The word echoes. Dwayne's voice deepens. That's not what I said. But that's what it means, Joy insists. The temperature spikes. The other hosts exchange glances again, visibly tense. Dwayne leans forward, both hands planted firmly on the table now. I don't know the world my every thought the second I think it, he says, controlled but intense. Leadership isn't impulsive. Joy responds instantly. Or is it cautious to a fault? And that's when it happens. Not shouting, not slamming fists, but something far more powerful. Dwayne stops trying to be agreeable. His tone shifts completely, steady, direct, unfiltered. You keep equating restraint with weakness, he says. It's not. Joy holds her ground. And you keep equating volume with recklessness. That's not fair either. The audience reacts louder now, divided applause, scattered murmurs. The studio feels split down the middle. Dwayne nods slowly, almost as if acknowledging the divide. You want honesty, he says. Joy doesn't hesitate. Yes. Fine. The word lands with weight. For years, he continues, voice firm and unwavering, I've watched how public outrage gets monetized. I've watched people tear each other apart for ratings, for clicks, for headlines. I made a decision early on that I wouldn't build my career that way. A few audience members clap. Joy raises a brow. Are you implying that's what happens here? A ripple of tension spreads instantly. Dwayne doesn't back down. I'm saying conflict sells, he says calmly. And sometimes it's manufactured. The air practically vibrates. Joy's smile tightens. So, now this is manufactured? Dwayne's eyes lock with hers. No, he says evenly. This is real. Because you're pushing. The bluntness shocks the room. Joy sits up straighter. I'm doing my job. And I'm answering, he replies. Their voices aren't loud, but they're sharper now.
Faster.
Joy tilts her head. You built your brand on being the hardest worker in the room. But what happens when the room challenges you? Dwayne doesn't hesitate this time. You get this. He gestures subtly between them. A confrontation. A standoff. Unsmiling. Unscripted. The audience is fully silent again. Joy studies him carefully. You look angry.
A beat.
Dwayne's lips press into a thin line. I'm focused, he says. But you don't like losing control, she presses. And there it is. The line that finally cuts deep. The implication that beneath the calm, beneath the discipline, beneath the gratitude speeches, is control. Dwayne leans back slowly, shaking his head once. You think this is about control? He asks quietly. Yes, Joy says. I think you've controlled your narrative so tightly that when someone pulls at it, it feels personal. The words hang in the air. For several seconds, Dwayne says nothing. The camera zooms in closer. You can see it now, not rage, but strain. A flicker of something he rarely shows publicly. He inhales, exhales, then speaks, slower than before. It feels personal, he says, because you're questioning my integrity. The audience reacts audibly. Joy doesn't flinch. I'm questioning the image. They're connected, he replies instantly. And that's the heart of it. Not politics. Not business. Identity. Joy leans back slightly now, sensing the line has been reached. But instead of retreating, she asks one final question, softer, but somehow heavier. If tomorrow the audience stopped cheering, if the box office numbers dropped, if the brand wasn't invincible anymore, who would you be? The studio is frozen. Dwayne stares at her. And for the first time, truly, the calm fractures. Not in volume. but in vulnerability. His voice, when he answers, is quieter. Still me. The simplicity of it disarms the room. No speech. No slogan. Just two words. Joy watches him carefully.
Prove it, she says.
And the challenge doesn't feel professional anymore. It feels personal. The audience collectively holds its breath, because everyone in that studio knows. The next thing he says will either restore the calm or shatter it completely. The word hangs between them. Prove it. Not playful, not rhetorical. A challenge. The audience is completely silent now. No whispers, no shifting, just anticipation pressing against the walls of the studio. Dwayne doesn't respond immediately. He looks at Joy, then at the audience, then down at his hands resting on the table, hands that have lifted championships, built empires, shaken presidents' hands, signed billion-dollar deals. And slowly he nods. You want proof? He says quietly. Joy doesn't move. Yes. Dwayne leans forward, elbows on the table, no smile, no performance. Here's proof, he begins. If tomorrow the box office numbers disappeared, if the endorsements stopped, if the audience decided they were tired of me. He pauses. I'd still wake up at 4 a.m. The room stays silent. Not for cameras, he continues. Not for headlines. But because that discipline saved my life once. And I don't forget that. His voice isn't loud, but it carries. Joy watches him carefully. I'm not invincible, he adds. I've had films fail. I've had business ventures struggle. I've had moments where I questioned every decision I made. The vulnerability in his tone is different now. It isn't defensive. It isn't reactive. It's grounded. But what I won't do, he says, looking directly at her, is perform chaos to prove I'm authentic. A wave of applause erupts, loud, divided, emotional.
Some people stand.
Others stay seated, arms crossed. Joy raises her hand slightly, waiting for the noise to settle. So, you're saying authenticity is restraint? She asks. I'm saying authenticity is consistency, he replies. Even when someone tries to pull you out of it. The line lands hard. The audience reacts again, louder this time. Joy exhales slowly, a thin smile crossing her face. Well, she says, I suppose we tested that today. Dwayne's expression softens just slightly. Maybe we did. There's a pause. The other hosts finally step in, voices lighter, trying to reset the tone. Let's take a breath. One of them laughs nervously. This has been intense. The audience chuckles, tension releasing in fragments. But the energy in the room has changed permanently. Because everyone saw it. The flicker. The crack. The moment the calm almost gave way. As the segment begins to wrap, the applause returns, not thunderous, but charged. People aren't just clapping for a movie anymore. They're reacting to a confrontation. Joy turns to him one last time before the cameras prepare to cut. No hard feelings? She asks, half smiling. Dwayne meets her eyes. None, he says evenly. Debate is healthy. But there's a quiet firmness in his tone that says the line was real. The cameras fade to commercial. And then, the studio explodes into noise. Audience members stand, some cheering loudly, others arguing in hushed but intense tones. A few are already on their phones, typing rapidly. Clips are being uploaded before Dwayne even leaves his chair. Producers rush in. The hosts exchange looks, some impressed, some unsettled. Joy adjusts her papers calmly, but even she can't fully hide the awareness that something bigger just happened. Backstage, Dwayne walks with measured steps. Not storming, not smiling, just thinking. His team approaches carefully. You handled that well, someone whispers. He nods once, but his mind isn't on praise. It's replaying the words. Calculated, careful,
Control.
Outside the studio, within minutes, social media ignites. Hashtag The Rock vs. Joy begins trending. Clips circulate. The stare, the you're looking at it. The I won't perform chaos. Comment sections divide instantly. Some praise Joy for asking hard questions. Others defend Dwayne fiercely, calling it an ambush. News outlets publish headlines within the hour. Dwayne Johnson's calm tested live on air. Did Joy Behar push too far? Cracks in The Rock's perfect persona? Reaction videos flood YouTube. Pundits debate whether restraint equals authenticity. Fans dissect every micro-expression. And for the first time in a long time, the narrative around Dwayne Johnson isn't about a premiere, a workout video, or a motivational quote. It's about a moment, a human moment. Later that evening, Dwayne posts a single message on his social media. Strong conversations build stronger people. Grateful for dialogue. No attack. No defensiveness.
Just that.
And somehow, that restraint fuels the debate even more.
Because some see it as strength.
Others see it as proof of control. But one thing is undeniable. The calm was tested, and the world watched. Back in the studio archives, producers replay the footage. They know it will live online for years. That stare, that shift, that almost break. It wasn't explosive in volume. It was explosive in tension. And that's what made it powerful. Because sometimes the loudest moments in television history are the quietest ones. Now it's your turn. Did Joy ask the questions everyone else was afraid to? Or did she cross a line? Was Dwayne's restraint strength or strategy? Drop your opinion in the comments below. I want to know where you stand. And if you love stepping inside these intense, cinematic celebrity moments, make sure you subscribe to Live Narratives for more explosive and dramatic stories. Because sometimes, the biggest battles don't happen in rings or on movie screens. They happen across a table, under bright lights, when the calm finally gets pushed to its limit.